And now I'm happy to pass the mic to Representative Mark Gama.
Okay. Sorry.
Are everybody's mics still working now that they're back on the podium? Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Gama. I'm a state representative from Milwaukee, and I used to serve as the mayor of Milwaukee. And I want to bring a little bit of this conversation into that space. So, as Senator Pham mentioned, we've been underinvesting in our transportation system here in Oregon for quite some time, roughly at least 2 decades. We have bridges in this state at our current investment level that we will not touch for 900 years. I want to make that clear. We, at our current investment levels, we have bridges in this state we will not touch for 900 years. No bridge ever invented by mankind was designed to last that long. The cities and the counties who are responsible for huge portions of our transportation district are counting on the state to do its part to make sure that there is sufficient funding to continue to keep our transportation system in good working order. Every state that surrounds us spends more per capita on transportation than we do, in some cases significantly more. It is time that Oregon do the responsible thing and lean into ensuring that we are protecting the investments we've already made in infrastructure that exists, in our roads, in our bridges, and continuing to move us into the 21st century and addressing climate and safety. Those are key to a good transportation package coming out of this session. Our SMART framework, the amendment that we've been working on, attempts to do that very thing. It's going to be a big conversation between the 90 members in this building about exactly where that will land. But our effort is has the purpose of presenting a concept that is the responsible concept that moves the needle in the right direction, both on the way our systems currently function and then improving things for kids trying to get to school, for folks just trying to get to work, keeping them safe, keeping them alive, and making sure everything's working. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Gamba. Next up, we have Representative Finger McDonald from Corvallis.
Thank you for being here today. Transportation is a critical need for every Oregonian. Whether you drive a car to work, ride a bike to school, or ride a bus to the coast. You know that the bridges we all travel on and move products on, it's telling our constituents that there would be a transportation bill to address that need. Oregonians deserve safe, sustainable transportation, and that system must include safe passage for cars and trucks and bikes and pedestrians. We must invest in public transit and in making our transportation system less environmentally impactful. This is what my constituents consistently say that they want. A well-maintained system that is safe for everyone, no matter what mode of transportation they use. A transportation system that helps us address climate impacts. We have an example in Corvallis of a common situation in Oregon. A state highway that is also a local road. Local traffic and highway traffic mix. This comes to a head in an area where pedestrian, bike, and highway traffic come together, and we throw a school in just to make things interesting. When my district talks about transportation needs, they talk about safety. They talk about safe routes to school, paths for bikes. They talk about the need to support public transport so we have good options for people who don't drive. We need a transportation package that reflects these values and that I believe are shared by most Oregonians. Time is running short and we need a transportation package that ensures we have the resources to repair and maintain our roads and bridges, but also embraces alternative modes of transportation and looks to the future. Thank you.
So next up we have Senator Jeff Golden from Ashland.
Good afternoon, and thanks for coming out today. I'm Jeff Golden. I represent Senate District 3 in Southern Oregon, proud home of Rogue Valley Transportation District. I am proud of that district and have seen what they've done over the years, giving Southern Oregonians an option to single passenger travel, just driving their car. And that's what I want to spend a couple of minutes talking about, how critical building and sustaining a robust transit system is to our future, because it's really obvious if you look where we are now in transportation, our current state, how we've gotten there, that we cannot pave our way to an adequate transportation system. There's a long list of reasons why that's true. The congestion that's bothering people in most parts of the state more and more, and that calls for very expensive projects for more lanes that will then get congested. All of the costs that are increasing for driving, for private driving, whether it's fuel or cost of vehicles and their upkeep or insurance, none of those trends are going away. So if we take a purely traditional single occupancy vehicle approach to this, as we've done for most of our history, we are going to fail. What we need to provide is an adequate transportation system, infrastructure, for people who want to keep using their own cars for all their travel, and a viable option for folks who might want to do something else. That option has to be reliable and convenient, and that is the challenge of transit. And people have shown that if you build a system that has a baseline of adequacy, of they know they can get where they need to go right around when they need to be there, maybe not quite as convenient as a private car, people will take that option more and more and more. And that is a central part of the solution. Because of that, right now our transit is funded, besides passenger fares, by what's called the STIF, the State Transportation Improvement Fund. That is 0.1% of payroll tax on payroll. This package calls for increasing that amount by 0.1% every biennium for 4 biennia, and it takes you finally in 2032 to 0.5% to provide a transportation system that can really change direction and really ease the rest of our transportation challenges. Really asking my colleagues to give serious consideration to look further down the road than we usually do to the kind of change that would make. We are called on here to step up to a very significant challenge, a basic responsibility of government, a transportation system. And perhaps the hardest part of that challenge is being completely straight with Oregonians. And when you are pretending you can provide adequate transportation infrastructure without more revenue in this day and age, you are not being straight with Oregonians. Senator Pham referred to accountability measures. It is absolutely true we have to do a better job making the bang happen for every buck of our transportation dollar. There's a lot of improvement to be had there. But to just talk about waste, fraud, and abuse with the goal of getting out of this building without taking a tax vote, without voting for more revenue for transportation, that is not serving Oregonians. That is not doing our job. We're trying to put together the most rational, defensible package of funding we can. We are going to continue on the accountability route, but it's time for all of us, legislators and citizens, to step up for a transportation system that'll work for Oregon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. So we have 3 folks from the community who are going to speak, and then we'll be wrapping up the press conference. So next up we have RJ Navaro, who's a veteran and member of the Chariots Transit District Board here in the Salem area. RJ.
All right. So House Caucus members have to go to caucus, so others can move over.
All right. Hi, good morning. My name is Ramiro Navarro Jr. Most people call me RJ for short. and I am the director of Sub-District 2 for the Salem Area Mass Transit District, also known as Chariots. I get asked a lot, why is a veteran interested in being on the board for a transit district? And I want to share a story with you guys today that I share with the folks that ask that. So I joined the military at 18. I was a combat veteran by 19 and an alcoholic by 20. I struggled returning home from Iraq in 2010, as many veterans do, and turned to drugs and alcohol to cope with that. That unfortunately earned me 18 months, day for day, no good time, no work time, on my first felony charge for marijuana. I spent most of that time at a maximum security prison right up the street. When I was released, it was access to public transportation that got me to my recovery classes. When I finally got access to peer support through the VA healthcare system, it was public transportation that got me to school utilizing my GI Bill benefits. And it was access to public transportation that got me to court to help fight for parenting time so I could get to see my son again. Next year, I'll be able to watch my son graduate from high school, and I don't know if I would have made it this far if it wasn't for that access to public transportation. My experience is not unique. For many veterans, low-income families, seniors, and people with disabilities, public transportation is more than a convenience. That's why I applied to serve on the board for the Salem Area Mass Transit District, because I wanted to give back to a system that gave me a chance to advocate for others who, so that they could have those same opportunities, especially fellow veterans who are still struggling in a state with one of the highest suicide rates amongst veterans in the nation. When Oregon is ranking last in the country for access to mental health services, we should be doing more to remove barriers to care, jobs, connection, and recovery. So today, I'm calling on the legislature to protect and expand access to public transportation, because for me and many others, it hasn't been just life-changing, it is life-saving. Thank you.
Thank you, RJ. Next up, we have Andrea Meyer from the AARP of Oregon. Welcome, Andrea.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Andrea Meyer, Director of Government Relations at AARP Oregon. And on behalf of AARP and our more than 500,000 members here in Oregon, I want to thank you for the invitation to speak about the importance of transit services for older Oregonians. Transportation is one of the top concerns for people as they age. Older Oregonians overwhelmingly want to age in place and get to places independently. Although everyone benefits from having multiple transportation options, it is especially important for older adults, people with disabilities, and others who are unable to or choose not to drive. People outlive their driving years by 7 years for men and 11 years for women. In some rural counties in Oregon, residents who are 65 and older already make up 35% of the total population. And the fastest growing segment of the Oregon population are people who are 85 years and older. We know that isolation has real health risks and can affect life expectancy. This can be more exacerbated in rural and frontier communities where distances are vast and transportation options and frequency are limited. That's why, as we move forward, we must create transportation systems that work for all Oregonians. I want to briefly share how important transit services are to one AARP volunteer, Richard. He lives in Portland. He is 72 years of age. He does not drive and relies entirely on the transit system. His income is limited, primarily relying on Social Security. The bus stop is at the corner of his block. It allows him not only to stay in community, but to thrive. He travels all over the metro area for everything: medical appointments, conferences, community events, times with friends, grocery shopping. He gives back to community by serving on boards and commissions and volunteering for AARP. When I spoke to Richard, he was headed to the Community Senior Center to model clothes at a fashion event. Richard is just one example of how public transit is a lifeline for older Oregonians. AARP believes in safe, reliable, equitable, accessible, affordable, and sustainable transportation. It's vitally important to making our communities a great place to live, work, and play for people of all ages and abilities. Thank you.
For our final speaker, we have Karina Guzman Ortiz, who's a local parent and member of the Salem Kaiser School Board. Welcome, Karina.
Good morning. I'm Karina Guzman Ortiz, mother of 2 children in Salem, and as mentioned, board director for the Salem Kaiser Public Schools. I have the virtue of living in and representing the southern eastmost part of Salem. Through our neighborhood, you'll find busy streets, you'll hear the morning roosters crowing, and meanwhile, across State Street, much needed development. New houses and apartments are sprawling up. Unfortunately, this busy road currently has no sidewalks. Young families and students need to circuit these gravel shoulders on their way to public and school transportation. On the other side, across Highway 22, we have middle schoolers crossing a highway overpass without marked pedestrian crossings or signs. No notice to drivers that students are on site. These gravel shoulders and high-speed limits do not invite families to walk to the local food court, to the pharmacy, or to find fresh produce at the Mexican market down the street. They do not make it easy to get to school. It should be a priority of the state to invest in our streets, our walkways, and safe pedestrian crossings. Safe streets are conducive to vibrant communities. Safe streets help protect children, families. Safety is for the collective good of our community and our economies. Yet here in Salem, in 2024, we set a record for the highest number of traffic fatalities. As a policymaker focused on educational outcomes, how can we promise our students a good education if they can't get to school safely? These are critical investments in our community that must be made and included in the transportation package this session. Salem isn't unique. Communities across the state of Oregon are begging for resources to make it easier for students to get to school. Oregon's Safe Routes to School program is so popular and successful that it's currently 5 times oversubscribed. That means that most communities across the state who apply for resources are turned away and unable to make the critical improvements. The SMART framework provides the resources necessary to fully fund this critical and popular initiative to ensure that every student across the state can get to school safely. As a parent and a school board member, I demand that our legislature fully fund Safe Routes to School for students in Salem and across Oregon.
Thank you. Thank you, Karina. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I want to especially thank Representative Mark Gama and Senator Confan for helping organize today's press conference. Speakers will be available if you wish to speak with them directly about any follow-up questions you have. And with that, I also want to shout out ATU 757, our transit union folks who are here as well. They're also available to speak to folks as well if you wish. Let's keep moving forward together. Thank you, everyone.